Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where we get relief from all the things that have happened to us today in this material world. With knowledge, they say freedom and knowledge. So when we hear what the material world is like, especially from Jad Bharat, we realize it's not just us. It's everyone in this material world that's going through it. And except for the devotees who are hearing regularly about Krishna, there's no relief, there's no alternative. And the relief they do get from sense gratification, it just makes it worse. It just builds the fire more by putting little drops of ghee into the fire. It just burns brighter rather than putting it out. So we're so fortunate. Let us count our blessings, the cornerstone of our house of bhakti, the basics, and a sense of gratitude for what we're learning and what we are knowing about life in this material world, and the fact that there's an actual alternative, and that we can taste it when we chant and hear together. Okay, Sanatana Goswami has something to say about this book we're reading every day. Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram from the Sri Krishna Lila Stava. Welcome to everybody out there in cyberspace. Hare Krishna. It goes like this. Sarva Shastra Vipiyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Vedanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidwan Doditaditya, Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life, heir of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshak Sharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguno Man Mahadana Manistadaga Madbhagya Madandanamostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin atinichuchata kada hanamuncha kadachin mam prem narit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay, reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 14, Text 14, beginning with Text 14. We're hearing the further instructions, and I think they're the last instructions, of Hare Krishna, Dr. G, of Jad Bharat, to give us the joy of knowing exactly where we are and why. Hare Krishna, the forest of material enjoyment. In this material world, when the conditioned soul cannot arrange for his own maintenance, despite exploiting others. He tries to exploit his own father or son, taking away the relative's possessions, although they may be very insignificant. If he cannot acquire things from his father, son, or other relatives, he is prepared to give them all kinds of trouble. Purport. Once we actually saw a distressed man steal ornaments from his daughter just to maintain himself. As the English proverb goes, necessity knows no law. When a conditioned soul needs something, he forgets his relationship with his relatives and exploits his own father or son. We also receive information from Srimad-Bhagavatam that in this age of Kali, the time is quickly approaching when a relative will kill another relative for a small farthing. Without Krishna, this was in the fifth canto, 1975. That was a long time ago. And it says here the time is quickly approaching. Well, it's happening every day nowadays. What it's saying is approaching. It's already happening. Without Krishna consciousness, people will deteriorate further and further into a hellish condition wherein they will perform abominable acts. Text 15. In this world, family life is exactly like a blazing fire in the forest. There is not the least happiness, and gradually one becomes more and more implicated in unhappiness. In household life, there is nothing favorable for perpetual happiness. Being implicated in home life, the conditioned soul is burned by the fire of lamentation. Sometimes he condemns himself as being very unfortunate, and sometimes he claims that he suffers because he performed no pious activities in his previous life. Purport. In the Guru Vastaka, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has sung, Sangsara Dava Na Ladida Loka Tranaya Karunya Gana Ganatwam. A life in this material world is exactly like a blazing forest fire. No one goes to set a fire no one goes to set fire to the forest, yet the fire takes place. Similarly, everyone wants to be happy in the material world, but the miserable conditions of material life simply increase. Sometimes a person caught in the blazing fire of material existence condemns himself, but due to his bodily conception, he cannot get out of the entanglement, and thus he suffers more and more. Text 16. So therefore, the conclusion is, we have to get out of the bodily conception. We have to learn the art of thinking, being aware of the fact that we're not the body as all these things are happening to us, and no one can avoid them, not even Lord Brahma. Text 16. Government men are always like carnivorous demons called rakshasas, man-eaters. Sometimes these government men turn against the conditioned soul and take away all his accumulated wealth. Being bereft of his life's reserved wealth, the conditioned soul loses all enthusiasm. Indeed, it is as though he loses his life. Purport. The word Rajakula Rakshasa is very significant. Srimad-Bhagavatam was compiled about 5,000 years ago, yet government men are referred to as Rakshasas, or carnivorous demons. If government men are opposed to a person, that person will be bereft of all his riches, which he has accumulated with great care over a long period of time. Actually, no one wants to pay income taxes. Even government men themselves try to avoid these taxes, but at unfavorable times, income taxes are exacted forcibly, and the taxpayers become very morose, except for Amazon.com. Well, not the workers of Amazon.com, but the owner. They pay zero income tax. They're the richest company in the world, and they pay zero income tax.
Why?
Because they have a battery of lawyers who are looking for all the loopholes and all the ways of moving money around and putting it in different categories and putting their statistics in a way that looks like they're not making anything when they're actually making everything. It's just a sham. It really is a sham, and it's becoming more and more obvious to people. I remember reading an article by a journalist, who actually went to Germany during the reign of Hitler, the Nazis, and he was there, and it was one of these big processions that they had. I don't know if you know about this, but they used to have these huge processions come down and millions of people would be on the sides of the roads and going, "Hail, Hail," and he would be there, and he was, like covering this, and he said, at one point during this, I felt myself getting influenced by you wonder, how can anybody follow this guy? Kill 6 million people for no reason. I mean, how can anybody follow? But a whole bunch of people follow. Then you think, how could as many people, vote for Trump as they did? But they did. Because there's an expertise that some leaders have. They're like expert at manipulating psychologically, and they know what to say to get people fired up. They know where the parts are where they're feeling bad about, and they know how to, amplify that. It's like a big reality show, And so we shouldn't be surprised. And then what he did was, this journalist, he just said, nope, I'm going, and he just went. And then afterwards he could write about it and realized just how the group think happens, how people become, influenced by what everyone else is doing, fashions, whatever. So this is what we're hearing about right now. We're hearing about the influence of the material energy. And until we are actually fixed on the spiritual platform and are perceiving moment to moment during the day. And it doesn't make any difference what our duty is, what our job is. There have been big kings, there have been paupers, and everybody in between that have been conscious of who they are during the day, not just when they're, in the temple making a prayer, but I'm talking about during the day. And that's our goal. That's our goal. So these explanations of just how tough it is in this material world is meant to shock us, to wake us up, so we don't just get depressed, Text 17. Sometimes the conditioned soul imagines that his father or grandfather has again come in the form of his son or grandson. In this way he feels the happiness one sometimes feels in a dream, and the conditioned soul sometimes takes pleasure in such mental concoctions. Purport. Due to ignorance of the real existence of the Lord, the conditioned soul imagines many things. Influenced by fruitive activity, he comes together with his relatives, fathers, sons, and grandfathers, exactly as straws gather together in a moving stream. In a moment, the straws are thrown everywhere, and they lose contact. In conditional life, the living entity is temporarily with many other conditioned souls. They gather together as family members, and the material affection is so strong that even after a father or grandfather passes away, one takes pleasure in thinking that they return to the family in different forms. Sometimes this may happen, but in any case, the conditioned soul likes to take pleasure in such concocted thoughts. Text 18. In household life, one is ordered to execute many yagyas and fruitive activities, especially the Vivaha Yagya, the marriage ceremony for sons and daughters, and the sacred thread ceremony. These are all the duties of a grihastha, and they are very expensive and troublesome to execute. They are compared to a big hill over which one must cross when one is attached to material activities. A person desiring to cross over these ritualistic ceremonies certainly it feels pains like the piercing of thorns and pebbles endured by one attempting to climb a hill. Thus the conditioned soul suffers unlimitedly. Purport. There are many social functions for keeping a prestigious position in society. In different countries and societies, there are various festivals and rituals. In India, the father is supposed to get his children married. When he does so, his responsibility to the family is complete. Arranging marriages is very difficult, especially in these days. At the present moment, no one can perform the proper ritual or sacrifice, nor can anyone afford to pay for the marriage ceremony of sons and daughters. Therefore, householders are very much distressed when they are confronted by these social duties. It is as though they were pierced by thorns and hurt by pebbles. Material attachment is so strong that despite the suffering, one cannot give it up. And Prabhupada told us many times, I'm only asking you to give up one thing. What is that? Your suffering. No, I don't want to give it. This is the way I am. Don't you understand? Material attachment is so strong that despite the suffering, one cannot give it up. Prahlad Maharaj therefore recommends Bhagavatam 7.5.5 Hit matmatpatam griham andakupam vanam kato yad dadam ashrayeta. The so-called comfortable family position is compared to a dark well in a field. If one falls in a dark well covered by grass, his life is lost, despite his cry for rescue. Highly advanced spiritualists therefore recommend that one should not enter the Grihastha ashram. It is better to prepare oneself in the brahmacharya ashram for austerities and remain a pure brahmachari throughout one's life, so that one will not feel the piercing thorns of material life in the Grihastha ashram. In the Grihastha ashram, one has to accept invitations from friends and relatives and perform ritualistic ceremonies. By so doing, one becomes captivated by such things, although he may not have sufficient resources to continue them. To maintain the Grihastha lifestyle, one has to work very hard to acquire money. Thus one is implicated in material life, and he suffers the thorn pricks. Prabhupada used to say brahmacharya life is the perfect life, the best life. But tell that to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Every time he looked at his house, it turned into Vrindavan. This is materialistic personalities that's being talked about. If you're a spiritual personality, it's not like that. Sometimes, due to bodily hunger and thirst, the conditioned soul becomes so disturbed that he loses his patience and becomes angry with his own beloved sons, daughters, and wife. Thus, being unkind to them, he suffers all the more. Purport. Srila Vidyapati Thakur has sung Tatala Saikate Varibindu Sama Sutamit Ramani Samaje. The happiness of family life is compared to a drop of water in the desert. No one can be happy in family life. According to the Vedic civilization, one cannot give up the responsibilities of family life, but today everyone is giving up family life by divorce. This is due to the miserable condition experienced in the family. Sometimes due to misery, one becomes very hardened toward his affectionate sons, daughters, and wife. This is but part of the blazing fire of the forest of material life. Text 20. Shukadeva Goswami continued speaking to Maharaj Parikshit. My dear king, sleep is exactly like a python. Those who wander in the forest of material life are always devoured by the python of sleep. Being bitten by this python, they always remain in the darkness of ignorance. They are like dead bodies thrown in a distant forest. Thus the conditioned souls cannot understand what is going on in life. Purport. Material life means being fully absorbed in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Out of these, sleep is taken very seriously. While asleep, one completely forgets the object of life and what to do. For spiritual realization, one should try to avoid sleep as much as possible. The Goswamis of Vrindavan practically did not sleep at all. Of course they slept some, for the body requires sleep, but they slept only about 2 hours, and sometimes not even that. No one should try to imitate that. I remember devotees in the beginning, when they read this, they tried to imitate it. Then some of them got very ill. Super bad headaches, they had to take all kinds of drugs, and because what's the right amount of sleep is different for each person. And you have to get enough sleep so that you're not drowsy all the time, so that you have energy. And if it means you have to sleep 6 or 7 or even 8, you do it as a service. Sleep is also devotional service. They are always engaged in spiritual cultivation. Nidra har viharadkari vichito. Following in the footsteps of the Goswamis, we should try to reduce sleeping, eating, mating, and defending. Try it. You'll like it. Text 21. In the forest of the material world, the conditioned soul is sometimes bitten by envious enemies, which are compared to serpents and other creatures. Through the tricks of the enemy, the conditioned soul falls from his prestigious position. Being anxious, he cannot even sleep properly. He thus becomes more and more unhappy and gradually loses his intelligence and consciousness. In that state, he becomes almost perpetually like a blind man who has fallen into a dark well of ignorance. Hare Krishna! Hare Krishna! Say it louder. Hare Krishna! Hare Krishna! Hare Krishna! Say it louder. Hare Krishna! Hare Krishna! Thank you. It works. Every time. Text 22. The conditioned soul is sometimes attracted to the little happiness derived from sense gratification. Thus, he has illicit sex or steals another's property. Shoplifters. At such a time, he may be arrested by the government or chastised by the woman's husband or protector. Thus, simply for a little material satisfaction, he falls into a hellish condition and is put into jail for rape, kidnapping, theft, and so forth. Purport. Material life is such that due to indulgence in illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, and meat eating, the conditioned soul is always in a dangerous condition. Meat eating and intoxication excite the senses more and more, and the conditioned soul falls victim to women. In order to keep women, money is required, and to acquire money, one begs, borrows, or steals. Indeed, he commits abominable acts that cause him to suffer, both in this life and in the next. Consequently, illicit sex must be stopped by those who are spiritually inclined or who are on the path of spiritual realization. Many devotees fall down due to illicit sex. They may steal money and even fall down from the highly honored, renounced order. Then for a livelihood, they accept menial services and become beggars. It is therefore said in the Shastras, Yan maitunadi grihamedi sukham hitucham. Materialism is based on sex, whether illicit or illicit. Sex is full of dangers, even for those who are addicted to household life. Whether one has a license for sex or not, there is great trouble. Bahu dukkha bhak. After one indulges in sex, many volumes of miseries ensue. One suffers more and more in material life. A miserly person cannot properly utilize the wealth he has. And similarly, a materialistic person misuses the human form. Instead of using it for spiritual emancipation, he uses the body for sense gratification. Therefore, he is called a miser. Text 23. Learned scholars and transcendentalists therefore condemn the materialistic path of fruitive activity because it is the original source and breeding ground of material miseries, both in this life and in the next. Purport. Not knowing the value of life, karmis create situations whereby they suffer in this life and the next. Unfortunately, karmis are very attached to material sense gratification, and they cannot appreciate the miserable condition of material life, neither in this life nor in the next. Therefore, the Vedas enjoin that one should awaken to spiritual consciousness and utilize all his activities to attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord Himself says in Bhagavad Gita 9:27, Yat karoshi, yat ajnashi, yat jahosi dadasi yat, yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurusha mararpanam. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. The results of all one's activities should be utilized not for sense gratification, but for the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord gives all information in Bhagavad Gita about the aim of life. And at the end of Bhagavad Gita, He demands surrender unto Him. People do not generally like this demand. I'll read that again. People do not generally like this demand. I'll read it again. I'm trying to wake you all up. People do not generally like this demand. But one who cultivates spiritual knowledge for many births eventually surrenders under the lotus feet of the Lord. Bahunam janmanam ante gyanavan mam prapadyate. Gita 7:19. Text 24. We don't like to surrender to Krishna, but we're forced to surrender to our mind and our senses and this and that and everything. So if you're forced to surrender, you have to surrender. Why not surrender to Krishna and be happy, rather than be forced to surrender to the material energy and be miserable? Therefore, Prabhupada says, I only ask you to give up one thing: your suffering, your misery. Text 24. Stealing or cheating another person out of his money, the conditioned soul somehow or other keeps it in his possession and escapes punishment. Then another man named Devadatta cheats him and takes the money away. Similarly, another man named Vishnumitra steals the money from the Devadatta and takes it away. In any case, the money does not stay in one place. It passes from one hand to another. Ultimately, no one can enjoy the money, and it remains the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Riches come from Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, and the goddess of fortune is the property of Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The goddess of fortune cannot stay anywhere but by the side of Narayana. Therefore, another of her names is Chanchala, restless. She cannot be peaceful unless she is in the company of her husband, Narayana. For example, Lakshmi was carried away by the materialistic Ravana. Ravana kidnapped Sita, the goddess of fortune, belonging to Lord Rama. As a result, Ravana's entire family, opulence, and kingdom were smashed, and Sita, the goddess of fortune, was recovered from his clutches and reunited with Lord Rama. Thus all property, riches, and wealth belong to Krishna. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 5:29, Bhoktadam Yagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the true beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, and He is the supreme proprietor of all the planetary systems. Foolish materialistic people collect money and steal from other thieves, but they cannot keep it. In any case, it must be spent. One person cheats another, and another person cheats someone else. Therefore, the best way to possess Lakshmi is to keep her by the side of Narayana. This is the point of the Krishna consciousness movement. We worship Lakshmi, Radharani, along with Narayana, Krishna. We collect money from various sources, but that money does not belong to anyone but Radha and Krishna, Lakshmi, Narayana. If money is utilized in the service of Lakshmi Narayana, the devotee automatically lives in an opulent way. However, if one wants to enjoy Lakshmi the way Ravana did, he will be vanquished by the laws of nature, and whatever few possessions he has will be taken away. Finally, death will take everything away, and death is the representative of Krishna. Text 25. Being unable to protect himself from the threefold miseries of material existence, the conditioned soul becomes very morose and lives a life of lamentation. These threefold miseries are miseries suffered by mental calamity at the hands of the demigods, such as freezing wind and scorching heat, miseries offered by other living entities, and miseries arising from the mind and body themselves. Purport. The so-called happy materialistic person is constantly having to endure the threefold miseries of life, called Adidaivika, Adiatma, and Adibhautika. Actually, no one can counteract these threefold miseries. All three may assail one at one time, or one misery may be absent and the other present. Thus the living entity is full of anxiety, fearing misery from one side or the other. The conditioned soul must be disturbed by at least one of these three miseries. There is no escape. Text 26. As far as transactions with money are concerned, if one person cheats another by a farthing or less, they become enemies. Purport. This is called samsara davanala. Even in ordinary transactions between two people, there is invariably cheating because the conditioned soul is defective in four ways. He is illusioned, he commits mistakes, his knowledge is imperfect, and he has a propensity to cheat. Unless one is liberated from material conditioning, these four defects must be there. Consequently, every man has a cheating propensity, which is employed in business or money transactions. Although two friends may be living peacefully together, due to their propensity to cheat, they become enemies when there is a transaction between them. A philosopher accuses an economist of being a cheater, and an economist may accuse a philosopher of being a cheater when he comes in contact with money. In any case, this is the condition of material life. One may profess a high philosophy, but when one is in need of money, he becomes a cheater. In this material world, so-called scientists, philosophers, and economists are nothing but cheaters in one way or another. The scientists are cheaters because they present so many bogus things in the name of science. They propose going to the moon, but actually they end up cheating the entire public of large sums of money for their experiments. They cannot do anything useful unless one can find a person transcendental to the four basic defects. One should not accept advice and become a victim of the material condition. The best process is to take the advice and instructions of Sri Krishna or his bona fide representative. In this way, one can be happy in this life and in the next. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Text 27. In this materialistic life, there are many difficulties, as I have just mentioned, and all of these are insurmountable. In addition, there are difficulties arising from so-called happiness, distress, attachment, hate, fear, false prestige, illusion, madness, lamentation, bewilderment, greed, envy, enmity, insult, hunger, thirst, tribulation, disease, birth, old age, and death. There it is, material existence in a nutshell. All these combine together to give the materialistic conditioned soul nothing but misery. Purport: the conditioned soul has to accept all these conditions simply to enjoy sense gratification in this world. Although people declare themselves great scientists, economists, philosophers, politicians, and sociologists, they are actually nothing but rascals. Therefore, they have been described as mudhas and naradamas in Bhagavad Gita. Namam 7:15. Namam duskritino mudha prapadyante naradamaha mayaya parita jnana asurim bhavam ashrita. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Due to their foolishness, all these materialists are described in Bhagavad Gita as naradamas. They have attained the human form in order to get released from material bondage. But instead of doing so, they become further embarrassed amid the miserable material conditions. Therefore they are naradamas, the lowest among men, lowest of men. One may ask whether scientists, philosophers, economists, and mathematicians are also naradamas, the lowest of men. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead replies that they are because they have no actual knowledge. They are simply proud of their false prestige and position. Actually, they do not know how to get relief from the material condition and renovate their spiritual life of transcendental bliss and knowledge. Consequently, they waste time and energy in the search for so-called happiness. These are the qualifications of the demons. In Bhagavad Gita it says that when one has all these demonic qualities, he becomes a mudha. Due to this, he envies the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, birth after birth, he is born into a demonic family, and he transmigrates from one demonic body to another. Thus he forgets his relationship with Krishna and remains a naradama in an abominable condition, life after life. Text 28. Sometimes the conditioned soul is attracted by illusion personified, his wife or girlfriend, and becomes eager to be embraced by a woman. Thus he loses his intelligence as well as knowledge of life's goal. At that time, no longer attempting spiritual cultivation, he becomes overly attached to his wife or girlfriend and tries to provide her with a suitable apartment. Again, he becomes very busy under the shelter of that home and is captivated by the talks, glances, and activities of his wife and children. In this way, he loses his Krishna consciousness and throws himself in the dense darkness of material existence. Purport: when the conditioned soul is embraced by his beloved wife, he forgets everything about Krishna consciousness. The more he becomes attached to his wife, the more he becomes implicated in family life. One Bengali poet, Bankim Chandra, says that to the eyes of the lover, the beloved is always very beautiful, even though ugly. This attraction is called Devamaya. The attraction between man and woman is the cause of bondage for both. Actually, both belong to the para, prakriti, the superior energy of the Lord, but both are actually prakriti, female. However, because both want to enjoy one another, they are sometimes described as purusha, male. Actually, neither is purusha, but both can be superficially described as purusha. As soon as man and woman are united, they become attached to home, hearth, land, friendship, and money. In this way, they are both entrapped in material existence. The word Bhujalata Upaguda, meaning being embraced by the beautiful arms, are compared to creepers. Describes the way the conditioned soul is bound within this material world. The products of sex life, sons and daughters, certainly follow. This is the way of material existence. Text 29. The personal weapon used by Lord Krishna, the disc, is called Hari Chakra, the disc of Hari. This chakra is the wheel of time. It expands from the beginning of the atoms up to the time of Brahma's death, and it controls all activities. It is always revolving and spending the lives of living entities, from Lord Brahma down to an insignificant blade of grass. Thus one changes from infancy to childhood to youth and maturity, and thus one approaches the end of life. It is impossible to check this wheel of time. This wheel is very exacting because it is the personal weapon of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes the conditioned soul, fearing the approach of death, wants to worship someone who can save him from imminent death. Yet he does not care for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose weapon is the indefatigable time factor. The conditioned soul instead takes shelter of a man-made god described in unauthorized scriptures. Such gods are like buzzards, vultures, herons, and crows. Vedic scriptures do not refer to them. Imminent death is like the attack of a lion, and neither vultures, buzzards, crows, nor herons can save one from such an attack. One who takes shelter of unauthorized, man-made gods cannot be saved from the clutches of death. Purport. It is stated, Harim bina naiva mritim taranti. No one can save himself from the cruel hands of death without being favored by Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita it is stated, Mameva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Whoever fully surrenders unto Krishna can be saved from the cruel hands of material nature. The conditioned soul, however, sometimes wants to take shelter of a demigod, man-made god, pseudo-incarnation, or bogus swami, or yogi. All these cheaters claim to follow religious principles, and all this has become very popular in this age of Kali. There are many pashandis who, without referring to the Shastras, pose themselves as incarnations, and foolish people follow them. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has left behind him Srimad-Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Not referring to these authorized scriptures, rascals take shelter of man-made scriptures and try to compete with Lord Krishna. That is the greatest difficulty one encounters when trying to promote spiritual consciousness in human society. The Krishna consciousness movement is trying its best to bring people back to Krishna consciousness in its pure form. But the pashandis and atheists who are cheaters are so numerous that sometimes we become perplexed and wonder how to push this movement forward. In any case, we cannot accept the unauthorized ways of so-called incarnations, gods, cheaters, and bluffers, who are described here as crows, vultures, buzzards, and herons. The truth will set you free. Text 30. The pseudo-swamis, yogis, and incarnations who do not believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead are known as pashandis. They themselves are fallen and cheated because they do not know the real path of spiritual advancement, and whoever goes to them is certainly cheated in his turn. When one is thus cheated, he sometimes takes shelter of the real followers of Vedic principles, Brahmanas, or those in Krishna consciousness, who teach everyone how to worship the Supreme personality of Godhead according to the Vedic rituals. However, being unable to stick to these principles, these rascals again fall down and take shelter among Shudras, who are very expert in making arrangements for sex indulgence. Sex is very prominent among animals like monkeys, and such people who were enlivened by sex may be called descendants of monkeys. Darwin was right. Purport. By fulfilling the process of evolution from the aquatics to the animal platform, a living entity eventually reaches the human form. The three modes of material nature are always working in the evolutionary process. Those who come to the human form through the quality of sattva guna were cows in their last animal incarnation. Those who come to the human form through the quality of rajaguna were lions in their last animal incarnation. And those who come to the human form through the quality of tamaguna were monkeys in their last animal incarnation. In this way, in this age, those who come through monkey species are considered by modern anthropologists like Darwin to be descendants of monkeys. We receive information herein that those who are simply interested in sex are actually no better than monkeys. Monkeys are very expert in sexual enjoyment, and sometimes sex glands are taken from monkeys and placed in the human body so that a human being can enjoy sex in old age. You know the famous person who actually did this? Do you know? Anybody? Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra did it.
What exactly?
He put a monkey gland inside him so they, by operation, so they could have sex longer when he was old. That's how far it goes, boys and girls.
These are our idols.
Yes, exactly. In this way, modern civilization has advanced. I don't want to be a boy. I want to be a girl. I don't want to be a girl. I want to be a boy. Did you know that in Sweden, they have passed a law? I mean, you're sitting down, right? I don't know if I can even say this. It's so ridiculous. They passed a law that until a child is 7, they're allowed to choose what sex they are. And the parents are not allowed to interfere. And if they do, they're held responsible. They're punished. Hare Krishna. Many monkeys in India were caught and sent to Europe so that their sex glands could serve as replacements for those of old people. Those who actually descend from monkeys are interested in expanding their aristocratic families through sex. In the Vedas, there are also certain ceremonies especially meant for sexual improvement and promotion to higher planetary systems, where the demigods are enjoying sex. The demigods are also very much inclined towards sex because that is the basic principle of material enjoyment. First of all, the conditioned soul is cheated by so-called swamis, yogis, and incarnations when he approaches them to be relieved of material miseries. When the conditioned soul is not satisfied with them, he comes to devotees and pure brahmanas who try to elevate him for final liberation from material bondage. However, the unscrupulous conditioned soul cannot rigidly follow the principles prohibiting illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and meat eating. Thus he falls down and takes shelter of people who are like monkeys. In the Krishna consciousness movement, these monkey disciples, being unable to follow the strict regulated principles, sometimes fall down and try to form societies based on sex. This is proof that such people are descendants of monkeys, as confirmed by Darwin. In this verse, it is therefore clearly stated, Yatha Vanara Jataha. Vanara means monkey, Jata means born. Okay, we'll stop here. This lovely atmosphere that's been created by the cold, hard, naked truth of material existence. Hare Krishna. Okay, here we are at our favorite time of the day. Well, for some people. An open mic period. I have a feeling somehow or other today there's not going to be like a rush to the mic. Is it? Kadasi. Must be some planetary system or something. Oh, good, she's not going to go out of the door, she's going to get the mic. Saved by the mic. Go ahead. Or you're here just to watch to make sure if somebody else wants to say, okay, well, look, the doctor's walking out the door. I mean, I don't know what's going on here, but anyway, Hare Krishna. Oh, there's a program at the temple. Oh, no wonder. Okay, Krishna arranged it. Krishna arranged it. I'm stopping right now so that devotees can go to Jayapataka Maharaj's Vyasa Puja ceremony. All glories to Jad Bharat. All glories to Srimad-Bhagavatam. All glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow, 6:30. Yes, same place, same time, same station. Hare Krishna.